What if we asked people what they were learning rather than just what they were reading? There are so many different ways to learn, and if you're listening to or watching this podcast right now, you've already leveled up the "What are you reading?" question. Welcome to episode 21 of the Mind Game podcast. My name is Stephanie Painchaud, and this is the Level Up edition. If you are new to the podcast, this is a solo episode where I dig into what I'm learning right now. In part 1 of this episode, I share a book I'm reading, Your Big Leap Year, 366 Ways to Level Up. One of my favorite ways to learn while I drive home, and my commitment to 10 for me. 10 minutes of movement every day, just for me. So if you're ready to learn about daily leaps, how you can expand the time you spend in your genius zone, and just to clarify, we each have a gift, a talent, a genius zone, and you might say, I have no idea what mine is. Turns out you're not alone. Sometimes I wonder the same thing. Am I on the right path? What is my purpose? The speaker I listened to today while I was out on my walk said, sometimes it's hard to see our own gift because we are so busy trying to be like someone else's gift. It's not out there. It's in you. Your gift, your talent, your genius zone is what you love to do. So let's dig into it. Welcome to the Mind Game. It's time to level up. Welcome to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. My name is Stephanie Painchaud, and I'm excited for you to join me on a journey behind the scenes where we'll dig into the stories of resilience, mindset, and unlock the simple habits that will help you change the game. Before we dive in, I want to express our gratitude for your continued support. Your energy powers our quest to provide content that encourages you to unlock new levels of personal growth and step out of your own comfort zone. If you're inspired by an idea or have a suggestion for a future topic, connect with us at mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. Your feedback is a power-up that helps us continue on this epic adventure. So if you're ready to get out of your own way and explore what you didn't know you needed to know, you've come to the right place. So buckle up, open up your mind. It's time to level up. Welcome back to the solo episode of the Mind Game podcast. This is the Level Up, and this week, what we are talking about, or in this episode, what we are talking about is, I was originally going to call it, what am I reading? What am I listening to? But I think the bigger question is, what are you learning? Because you can pick up a book and read it. You can read it digitally. You can listen while you're in the car. You might go for a walk at lunch, listen to a podcast, a pep talk, or watch a TED Talk, listen to the TED Talk, or you might do all of the above at different times. You might have a podcast running in the background while you're doing housework. You might have a podcast while you're going out in the garden. That's one of my favorite places to listen to books, weed the garden, and also listen to a book. Sometimes they're fiction, sometimes they are nonfiction. But in today's episode of the Mind Game podcast, we are going to look into what am I reading? What am I listening to? And what have I just finished? So I have 3 books for you that I'm going to share that come in a variety of different formats, and I will include all of those. But first of all, a huge thank you to all of the listeners and viewers out there who are watching the Mind Game podcast. Thank you so much for all of your support. To the people that are sharing the podcast, thank you so very much. And if you are listening to the podcast for the very first time, my name is Stephanie Painchaud, and I am the host of the Mind Game podcast, which is designed to connect you with people you didn't know that you needed to meet so that we can all learn to level up our life. And what an absolutely amazing journey it has been. This is episode 21. So every week we put out an episode. We often do part 1 and part 2 of a variety of interviews. If you are a regular listener to the Mind Game podcast, drop a comment and let me know who's been your favorite guest so far. And if you have questions for any of the guests, let me know. My plan is to have guests back on follow-up episodes. Also, still trying to get my daughter Sadie to do an episode of the Mind Game podcast with me. The title of her segment is going to be Dig In, and we'd like to interview coaches or athletes. And she is big into club volleyball, into basketball, badminton, hopefully track and field. That was one of my favorite sports. But what we want to dig into as a mother-daughter team is what goes on behind the scenes for athletes. How do you build the habits that will make you successful? So stay tuned for hopefully coming soon an episode of the Dig In version of the Mind Game podcast. So we have amazing guests coming up. We have Sid coming up on one of the future episodes. We have Charlene coming up in a future episode, and she'll talk about all of the amazing things that she does. She is always reading and sharing new books, and that is one of my favorite things, is to follow people who are reading, people who are learning, people who are continually leveling up their life. So in search of the level up, the next habit, one of the books that I came across listening to one of the podcasts, which is the Kathy Heller podcast, you can check that out on Spotify or Apple. She is who I took a podcasting course from. Amazing teacher, great energy. Energy is also something we'll explore in future episodes. But the Kathy Heller podcast has a variety of guests, and I happened to listen to one when Gay Hendricks was on, and he was talking about how you can level up your life. He was talking about his newest book, Your Big Leap Year. It is basically the breakdown of the leap year book that he's done earlier, but it takes it into 366, because it's a leap year, ideas of how you can level up your life. And so what I love about this is it's broken down into 1 page per day. Now, does that mean I've always been able to keep up and read one a day? No, but I am getting better at building in that habit of reading just a little bit every day. So you can see when I open up the book here, he has daily leaps that he talks about. So we see the daily leaps. I will put this information for how you can find the book. I got my copy on Amazon, so you can certainly check that out. And he talks about committing to expand your genius. So how can you learn to spend more time in your genius zone? What is your genius zone? So what lights you up? So here are a few of my favorite questions so far. I've just started the leap year. But if you are interested, and here's my wonder for all of you listening or watching the podcast out there, if we picked out a book, or if we picked out parts of books to read, would you love to have a conversation with other people who are interested in leveling up their life? So a little bit of behind the scenes, I am working on an app with a space where we can have a community, have conversations, and perhaps even go behind the scenes with some of the people that I've interviewed. So let me know if you're interested in that. I'm working on an email list. So check the comments or the show notes down below to get more information. But let's dig back into your big leap year and some of the ahas that I've had so far. If you'd like to read your big leap year with me, drop a comment, join the Facebook group, and we can start doing that. And when I launch the app, this will be one of the first books that we dig into, but I will also start to share some of the things that I'm learning from the book. So in here, we talk about beginning your big leap year, and the first one is that commitment to expanding your genius every day. And you might say, I'm not sure what that is yet. And that is part of the journey. And part of what he says is he explores the difference between willingness and commitment. And he says both are essential to your journey of transformation. They serve different functions. So you need to feel what it's like to be willing and open to something. Willingness means you're open to the possibilities. Commitment feels different. So he says, when I tune into what willingness feels like in my own body, it's that space of openness. Commitment has intention. So willingness opens the space for something positive to occur. Commitment takes you into action. And so in the Mind Game podcast, we want to learn those habits that are going to take us from a good intention, that are going to put us into action and move us forward. One of my other favorites, and I think every day I learn something here, and he talks about a variety of different things, intention helping you move in a specific direction. But on day 5, he talked about the power of wonder. And so one of the habits that I'd like to share with you is the power of wonder. And he says, wonder is a superpower in manifesting your goals and dreams. When you wonder, you open a direct relationship with the creative force in yourself. And so I think we have all over time perhaps decreased or dimmed the light of our creative force. We know we talked with Tiffany, who describes herself as a creative. And I think one of her things that she said was to follow your curiosity. And so that's one of the things he talks about in here as well. If wonder is your superpower, he says, when you focus your wonder on something you really want to know, you create results that often feel like magic. And he talks a little bit about how to phrase those wonder questions. He says to turn on the superpower of wonder, you need to ask, to live my very best life, what do I most need to learn? Focus on asking that simple question. He also says when you genuinely wonder about something, it creates an opening through which new creative ideas can pour forth. So, what is it that you're interested in? What is it that you could learn about that would help you to move forward in life? What is it that you wonder about that could help you level up your life? The follow up on day 6 is a technique of how you phrase the wonder. So, when you're thinking about things in life, or you're thinking about the future, or you're wondering about the future, what you can do is actually add, And yes, I just said, Hopefully that came through on the podcast. So when you add, and yes, I'm a write all over the book and add sticky notes kind of person here. When you find the right wonder question, the results can be life changing. What he says that you can do is add the word in front of the wonder. So you might say, I wonder what I'd like to have for lunch. I wonder what it would be like when I level up. I wonder what it would be like when I can choose what I do with my time each day. I wonder what it would be like when I can spend more time with my family, when my job is what I love to do each day. And so he said there's actually interesting research on using the word Probably you've never heard that so many times in a podcast. He said science tells us that when humans make a humming sound, we actually integrate the logical and emotional sides of the brain. And wonder questions work best not when you not only think them in your mind, but you also feel them in your body. So if you begin your wonder with a you bring whole brain, whole body power to your wondering. And so he says one of the questions you could ask is, how can I get the most life-changing learning from my big leap year? And what I'm wondering is how many times have you said, already while you're listening to the podcast? So the next time you go to wonder, or the next time you're thinking about something, think about how you could flip that into a wonder. Think about how you could add, in front of that and see what that can do. He also goes into talking about the ULP problem, the upper limit problem. He talks about finding your genius and exploring your genius. And so if you're curious about this and how you could level up, if you'd love to do some of the level ups together in the Facebook group or when I get the app going, drop a comment and let me know, or send me a message and let me know. This is probably one of my favorite reads because it's easy to do. It's straightforward. You can grab it in the digital copy. I believe there's probably an audiobook version of it, but he has broken it down into 366 steps to basically power up your life. So that is your big leap year. That is one of my favorite books that I am currently reading right now. I'm curious, and I wonder how many people out there actually like the paper copy of a book. I would say I'm probably very much into technology and social media, but surprisingly, I love the feel of a paper book. I like to be able to highlight, I like to be able to add notes to the book because then I feel like I can remember the ideas better. So let me know, and maybe I'll post this as a question, as a poll for this episode. Do you like a paper copy of a book? Do you like the digital copy of the book? Do you like the audio version of the book? And that leads us into the next part of the podcast today. And again, this is a shorter episode as we go through and level up. So you have your I wonder questions. I wonder how I could commit to spending more time doing the things that I love. How could I commit? I wonder how I could commit to expanding my genius. If you're curious about that journey, stay tuned. We can follow up with that part. I also wonder how many of you love to listen to audiobooks. And I know podcasting is huge right now, and that's what you're listening to. And I very much appreciate your dedication and for sharing this out and for all of the positive feedback and the encouragement to keep going. But I wonder how many of you listen to books or podcasts while you're doing different things. And if you'd asked me 20 years ago if I would be driving around in the car listening to podcasts and listening to books, probably would have said no. But when I switched out of the classroom and I started working as a learning consultant in a variety of schools, and I was driving around the school division, I actually spent a lot of time in the car by myself. And my daughter had a way to phrase it today. She said, I was skipping through too many songs because when we drive together, she often DJs the ride and we have great conversation, which is one of my favorite things. But I would prefer on a longer drive to listen to an audiobook or a podcast and have someone talking with me and learning new ideas. Now, sometimes I can tell you where I was on the highway when I heard something, not necessarily explain the whole concept, but I can link it to a place that I was. And so I'm curious if that happens to you as well. Now, the app that I use most often for audiobooks is Audible. So you can check that out. It's associated with Amazon. What I love is no matter what device I'm on, so I was looking at my phone, no matter what device I'm on, it will pick up where I left off. So if I hop in the car, it will pick up at that spot in the book. It will pick up if I'm listening in my kitchen. I can stream it to my Google Home. I could put it on a different device and it will pick up where I left off. So I appreciate that. Super handy, easy to use. And I know a lot of people use Audible. If you have something else that you love for audiobooks, let me know. I would love to check that out. And so, my wonders also out to all of you are, what are some of your favorite podcasts? I'm always up for listening to new podcasts, learning more. What are some of your favorite audiobooks? Do you have some favorite authors? And so, in this episode, I would love for you to email me at stephanie@mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. Let me know what some of your favorite books, audiobooks, podcasts, what are some of your favorite ways to learn? And so that was my first segment. It's going to be broken down into a few parts because I'm recording over a few nights because life gets full of different things. And it is after 9. I haven't done my workout yet. So it is time to commit to my daily habit of working out. And for me, how do I do that? I create a must do, can't fail. My friend Katie would say that when we're unpacking curriculum. What are the must do, can't fails, that the non negotiables that every day you will commit to doing? And so my commitment is to 10 minutes of movement every day. And some days that is 10 minutes of yoga. Some days it is an hour of a Carolyn Gervin workout. And Carolyn Gervin is one of my all time favorite fitness trainers to follow. Someday I would love to interview Carolyn Gervin. So working on that. And now that I've said it out loud, that means I need to contact her and follow up with that. But 10 minutes, my daily minimum, and what I have coming inside the app is, I think, a challenge that we can all commit to that will help us to get going, because part of the Mind Game podcast goal is to not only connect you to people you didn't know you needed to know, but to take you from the intention of starting into actual movement and into motion. How can you shift that energy and follow up with that intention and actually put it into action, because it will make you feel better. So over 500 and some days ago, I started with a 10-minute minimum, 10 minutes every day. And then I found the Carolyn Gervin workouts. And so now I try to fit those in every day, or at least 4 to 5 times a week. And I just do whatever Carolyn says for the next 45 seconds, the next 60 seconds. And she also just launched an app this year. So if you're curious about that, let me know and I can share that information with you. But tonight I am headed to do my workout. I think I am on day 31 in the Iron series. And so it was leg day yesterday. So that probably means it's arm day today. So the next part of this podcast will likely be recorded tomorrow, because this is real life. And in the level up, we have to find some balance. So this is Stephanie signing off temporarily while I go to do the workout. I will be back tomorrow. The book I'd like to share with you next is David Goggins' Never Finished, and How to Unshackle Your Mind and Win the War. So that is an absolutely amazing read. Great storyteller. He is intense and he has lived it. So not only does he talk the talk, he walks the walk. And then the other book that if we have time in this episode, that I will share with you is the one I'm currently reading, and that is Jim Kwik's Limitless. So I will be back in the blink of an eye for you. And if I had a sponsorship, that would come in right now. But what I want to do is just shout out all of the amazing people that have supported me on this journey. And so to all of my guests that have agreed to be on, thank you so much for joining me. I have learned so much from all of you, and I'm excited for all of the guests I have yet to meet and all of the podcast listeners for what we have and how we can level up together. So back in a little bit. For those of you on the podcast wondering if I actually went and did the workout, it is almost 11 o'clock. It was day 32. It is done. That is 598 days of at least 10 minutes of physical activity. Today was day 32. It was arms, biceps, triceps, chest, and upper back. So I will see you back in just a minute on the podcast. Let's dig into Never Finished by David Goggins. And that's where we are going to pause part 1. I'll share more about David Goggins' book, Never Finished, and my book in progress in part 2 of this episode. I hope you enjoy learning as much as I do, and I appreciate you joining me on the journey behind the scenes and deeper into the mind game. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share it with a friend, post it on social media, or just talk about how it helps you level up. So what did I learn from reflecting on this episode? Number 1, expand your genius. Commit to spending more time in your genius zone by exploring what lights you up and committing to daily habits that promote growth and fulfillment. There's that habits thing again. We talked about the power of wonder. Embrace wonder as a superpower by asking meaningful questions. Use and that's the last time I'm going to say that in this episode, as a way to integrate logical and emotional parts of your brain. Use I wonder to spark curiosity, unlock new creative ideas, and wonder what your life could be like. Learning on the go. Make the most of your time by incorporating audiobooks and podcasts into your daily activities. Use apps like Audible or any of the apps that you find helpful to get you access to information. That could be a TED Talk, it could be Audible, it could be your favorite motivational app. Use those different opportunities to expand your knowledge while you're driving, while you're doing housework, while you're exercising, going for a walk, or maybe you just want to sit down and learn. Number 4, physical activity makes a difference to your well-being, to your whole well-being. Prioritize daily physical activity as a non-negotiable habit for overall well-being. Whether it's 10 minutes of movement or a full workout, find ways to incorporate exercise into your routine to feel better and perform at your best. Lastly, resilience and determination. The inspiration for resilience comes from all around us. Surround yourself with people who challenge you to level up. And if it's not always possible to be near those people, listen to them. Watch them. Choose to level up daily by listening to inspiring people. And contrary to what you might think, you can train your social media algorithm to feed you positive, inspiring, and informational content. Maybe that's a whole episode in itself. So stay tuned for part 2, where I share some of my favorite parts of the David Goggins book, Never Finished, and introduce you to how to become limitless in the That's What I'm Listening to Now segment. And I'm headed to some professional development to learn more about AI and education, that's artificial intelligence and education, and to step out of my comfort zone and do what I suggest we all do on the podcast and level up. Ask me how my presentation went, because yes, I'm going to present at a conference with lots of different people that I don't know, and my presentation is called Unlocking the Human Advantage During the Rise of AI. Maybe that's a whole episode in itself. Throw in a little bit of volleyball, and that's the next week. I will be back next Sunday with a new episode talking more about David Goggins' book. We'll talk more about Limitless. And for now, thank you for listening to the Level Up edition. Remember to check out our Facebook group. Find me on social media at mindgame.levelupyourlife, or send me an email at stephanie@mindgamelevelupyourlife.com. Send me some questions, topic ideas, or your favorite book. Until next time, thanks for listening. Here's your episode 21, Mind Game Challenge. Share this episode and try adding to the start of your I wonder questions. Hashtag it, level up your life. Your question could be, I wonder what habit I'll take from this episode. I wonder what it will be like when I shift my habits in my future. Thank you for choosing to listen to Mind Game, a podcast to level up your life. We hope that you've enjoyed the insights, inspiration, and habits shared in this episode. Your support is a game changer, and we are incredibly grateful to be on this journey with such an amazing community of listeners. If you have any wonders, questions, or suggestions about this or future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on social media and share your feedback. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring valuable content to you, our listeners. Don't want to miss the next episode? Join our Facebook group and email list and get ahead of the game. Until next time, remember to mind the game so that you can get out of your own way and level up your life.